In this video, I want to explore the danger of what I call feel-good spirituality. It is really something that is worth investigating because whether we recognize it or not, this is something we can very easily fall into. And recognizing whether we did fall into this kind of feel-good spirituality trap can make a difference. So what do I even mean by the term feel-good spirituality in the first place? What I mean by that is not any particular kind of spiritual tradition or approach. This can really occur with any kind of approach and within any kind of tradition. But essentially, what I mean is that we learn all these concepts about spirituality, right? About awakening, about enlightenment. And some of these concepts are quite soothing to hear. They feel pleasant. It feels pleasant to think about them. It feels pleasant to explore them. They are really nice concepts, so to say. And of course, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And there's also nothing inherently wrong with finding enjoyment in conceptual thinking or enjoying the beauty of an idea. That's quite natural and fine. But nevertheless, something that can happen rather quickly is that instead of actually realizing what these concepts are pointing to, we just think about what's being pointed to. We conceptualize it. We ponder it. And that makes us feel kind of nice, but it doesn't lead us to the actual recognition of what's being pointed to. And of course, the actual recognition is the important thing. So let's take the statement, for example, of there is no self, there's no one here to suffer. Of course, essentially that points to something that really is true about this condition we are in. There really is no self, and ultimately there really isn't some kind of entity who suffers. But we can use this kind of statement and just think about it and feel how pleasant that is. Oh, nice. No one's here to suffer. It can, of course, feel good to think about that, but it is quite different from actually realizing within your experience that there is no separate self, right? So there is thinking about this experience, and there's the actual realization of that experience. And that's quite different. And we can take another statement. We can take the statement of all there is awake presence. Again, it points to something that is true, right? But we can just think about this concept, enjoy that, right? Take comfort in that. We can look out in the world and just think, oh my God, everything is just presence. Everything is just this awake awareness. Isn't that nice? And again, we might feel positive emotions because of that. But it is quite different from actually recognizing that this awake presence is all there is. There only is this presence here right now in all its unbounded awake openness, taking the shape of this particular experience. That is not just a nice statement, a nice bit of theory. That is actually something we can realize within our experience. And when we realize that, the statement of all there is this awake presence makes sense, of course. This might be a kind of formulation of this experience which then arises. We can enjoy that formulation and we can enjoy the experience that accompanies it. But if we just leave it at that, that's simply not good enough, right? There has to be the actual realization. If there isn't this realization, then this whole path of spirituality, of awakening, is really just positive thinking, right? Because what's the difference between positive thinking in the traditional sense, where we just repeat a sentence and affirm a kind of positive identity, and repeating these spiritual concepts. It's also, in a sense, just the same kind of positive thinking. And maybe you might ask yourself, well, what's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong with that, essentially. But the issue is that it doesn't help us with actually addressing the root of our suffering. And when we are suffering, it becomes clear rather quickly that this kind of positive thinking is just not good enough. Because then all these negative thoughts will arise, right? When we are really suffering. And furthermore, these intense, strong negative emotions, which get triggered in the body. And then we have our positive spiritual thinking. And so the negative thinking and the spiritual thinking kind of battle it out. And we see who will be the winner, right? And there is something inherently unsatisfying about that. And furthermore, there's the sense that we are really struggling against something which is overwhelming. We notice that this kind of positive thinking maybe helps a bit, but still we are on this battle against our suffering. And in some sense, that just serves to perpetuate our suffering as well. But when we are actually recognizing what is being pointed to, that which is recognized is not in this realm of positive thinking and negative thinking. It is not a new ingredient that gets added into the mix and helps us to win this battle. No, what's being pointed to is much more essential, much more foundational than that. What's being pointed to is the actual nature of our experience. A freedom which is not conditional, which is not dependent on the body-mind. This is the freedom and the peace which is always here, which in a sense totally transcends the body-mind world, but is also totally intimate with it. It's not dependent on causes and conditions, and it's always there to be realized. So the next time you're engaging in this kind of feel-good spirituality, just check yourself and see whether you actually recognize what you're feeling good about. Because when the suffering actually hits you, just the positive thinking won't be good enough at all. There has to be the recognition of what's being pointed to. As always, if anything remains unclear, don't hesitate to write in the comments or use the links in the description to contact me, and we can explore these topics more in depth in a one-on-one conversation. Other than that, you can also subscribe to the channel or check the links in the description if you want to support this channel, and I will see you right here next time.